Sometimes it's easier to understand how depression can develop or what it looks like by hearing someone else's struggle. While each woman's experience is unique, there are also many shared aspects of motherhood that can trip us up. What follows is Sophie's story. Sophie is not a single client of mine, but the confluence of common themes I have heard repeatedly throughout my career. She represents dozens of my clients. This is Sophie's story. Sophie had always wanted to be a mother, but she had a lot of other goals in life too. She was very successful professionally for someone who was only 30 years old. She was ecstatic when she became pregnant. But not long after the initial excitement, things became stressful. Pregnancy was not how she imagined it. She felt tired all the time. Her morning sickness was relentless and continued into her second trimester. Not feeling well herself, she began to worry about her baby's health. Despite being perpetually exhausted, she began having trouble sleeping. Nonetheless, she pushed through. She wanted to save as much of her 8 weeks of maternity leave for after the baby arrived, so she worked until she was in her 39th week. Labor began 2 weeks later. Although it initially came on strong, her contractions began to peter out. Hoping and planning for a natural birth, she felt defeated when her doctor recommended starting Pitocin, but she ultimately agreed. The Pitocin worked. Boy, did it work. The contractions were overwhelming. She had hoped she could deliver without pain medication, but after another 20 hours of strong labor, she was only 6 centimeters dilated. She needed something for pain. 7 hours later, their healthy son arrived into the world. His first cries were so loud they surprised even the delivery nurse. Her partner, Martine, joked that the child was clearly a force to be reckoned with, just like his mom. 2 days later, they returned home with their son, exhausted but complete. That first night home with the baby was hard. Her son woke up repeatedly and fussed a lot. He was clearly hungry, but Sophie's milk hadn't come in yet. The only thing that made her son stop crying was nursing. Sophie had already nursed for over an hour on each side repeatedly, and nothing helped. Alone at 3 in the morning, exhausted from so little sleep and unable to satisfy her baby, Sophie felt lost and helpless. She thought about waking her partner, but what could he do? She nursed her son through the night, and when the sun rose, she was profoundly exhausted. It had been 3 days since she had slept more than 2 hours in a row. That next day, a line of visitors arrived. Despite her discomfort, Sophie ran around trying to make her house ready for guests. She was so accustomed to playing host that it never occurred to her that at this time, maybe people should be serving her. Sophie longed to go to bed, but with her visitors, she didn't want to miss these moments. That evening, Sophie tumbled into bed exhausted. Just as she fell asleep, her baby began making noises. Her partner offered to take care of the baby, but Sophie said, "He's hungry, and I'm the one with the boobs." Over the next week, feedings became increasingly painful. She wondered what she might be doing wrong. She went to see a lactation consultant who suggested her baby might be tongue-tied. She made an appointment with her pediatrician. She noticed the baby was gaining weight nicely, but did have a tongue tie or a short frenulum. She suggested that Sophie have the tie clipped. Although she was nervous, nursing was excruciating. She and Martine decided it was the best thing to do, and it helped immediately. She noticed her baby was less frustrated feeding, and she was no longer in pain. By this point, Sophie had gone almost 4 weeks without sleeping, more than 3 hours in a row. She did not feel like herself. As the sleepless nights ran together, she found herself compelled to check on the baby throughout the night. Was he still on his back? Was he breathing? Soon these worries made it even harder for her to sleep. Martine was back at work by this time, so she felt guilty waking him to take care of the baby and just let him sleep. Her exhaustion became profound. Laundry and dishes piled up. The baby cried whenever Sophie put him down, so she carried him wherever she went. Her baby's cries felt like nails on a chalkboard. To Sophie, they seemed to announce her failure as a mother. When she tried to shower, he screamed the entire time, so she began extending the days between showers. Soon, she began to feel unattractive. Sophie didn't even feel like herself anymore. Her confidence was gone. She kept asking herself what she must be doing wrong. She felt like a terrible mother. When Martine came home from work, she found herself being critical or short with him. Finding it hard to do anything to her standards, he withdrew. He knew things weren't going well for Sophie, but he didn't know how to help her. Sophie began withdrawing from her friends and family. She didn't have the energy to deal with other people. She also didn't want to pretend everything was okay. At her 6-week follow-up appointment with her OB, she filled out a questionnaire asking about her mood. When her doctor asked Sophie about her answers, Sophie ended up admitting that she was exhausted because her son wouldn't sleep and that the reality of motherhood wasn't what she'd expected. As she described her experience, Sophie couldn't hold back the tears. "I just feel so overwhelmed. Everything feels so hard. I don't know how to do this." Her doctor suggested that Sophie may have postpartum depression. And upon hearing those words, she felt an ironic sort of relief. It was like everything suddenly made sense. Maybe there was help, but she didn't want to take a medicine that might affect her son in some way. Her doctor assured her that medication may not be necessary, although there were some that are safe for breastfeeding mothers and their babies. Sometimes all a woman needs is a trained therapist to talk to. Sophie had never been in therapy. The thought of seeing a therapist made her feel like a failure, but she knew she couldn't keep going like she was. Back at home, she pulled out the card her doctor had given her and made an appointment. The therapist said she was welcome to bring her baby if she wanted to. After hanging up, Sophie suddenly felt hopeful, like maybe there was a chance things could be better. As the day approached, Sophie became nervous about what she should say. She contemplated canceling, but trusted her doctor's opinion. So with a mixture of apprehension and hope, she went to her first appointment. Sophie found herself pouring out the whole story, how she was feeling like a failure, like she was too exhausted to think anymore, that she was yelling at people she loved. She even shared that she imagined bad things happening to the baby and had to check on him throughout the night to make sure he was okay. To her surprise, her therapist said how common these thoughts were after having a baby, that they would most likely lessen after her sleep and mood improved. In the first session, they created a plan to improve her mood. She left her first visit feeling hopeful for the first time in weeks. From the very beginning, Sophie strived to be a good mom, but as you can see, there are numerous pitfalls that can push you down the road to depression. I will map these out for you so you can create a strategic plan to prevent PPD and be your best self. This course was built upon proven strategies for avoiding PPD and includes many techniques which I developed over my 25 years as a physician, 20 years as a mom, and 12 as a perinatal psychotherapist. Furthermore, each of these strategies also benefits your baby. As both a family doc and psychotherapist, my patients are both the mom and the baby. I do not make recommendations for moms that don't also take the well-being of the baby into consideration. The strategies in this course will not make you choose between your needs and your baby's. Moms already have enough guilt. Let's get you prepared so PPD is not a battle you ever have to fight.